welcome to Friday Night Conversations. Good to have you with me again. I got a special guest tonight whose name you may have heard of, and he is Bram Duffee, PhD. He is Assistant Professor of Communication at Kennesaw State University and co-author of a book entitled Hypnotic Communication in Emergency Medical Settings. And I know you have a lot more things done, but I'll leave it at that. Is that good enough?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, Steve. I'm excited to
Well,
be here with you.
thank you. I have a few questions for you, but before I get into those, you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, sure. So I live in Houston, Texas, and I'm a paramedic. I've been a paramedic for 25 years, and I also am a speech teacher. So I teach communications classes at the college, and right now I'm teaching health communication at Kennesaw State University. I teach there online, but I live in Houston where I work, as a paramedic. So that's that's what I have going on in my life. And then I wrote a book, and that was why I was excited to be able to be on your show to talk about it today.
I'm glad you are. So, how did you get into being a paramedic? I know your mother had something to do with that, correct?
Yeah, it's true. So, I am one of those folks that pretty much figured out that I wanted to be a paramedic early on. It's not something that I really had a choice. It's almost like it was a life calling for me. And I had a mom who was a registered nurse, and she did patient education, counseling, and teaching, and she did a lot of CPR training. And so because of that, I sort of got indoctrinated, and I always felt like that I wanted to go into medicine. And many people in my life have asked me why I didn't become a physician. And it's funny, but the truth is that I think I got a PhD instead of an MD because I wasn't that good in science. Like I was a straight A student, but got I think I got uh, a B in biology and a C in chemistry, and that wasn't going to work out for any chance in med school. But I really love medicine, and so the all the stuff that's happened has been really awesome to allow me to have this path, because I feel like I have two different lives. One life where I'm a paramedic, and then another life where I'm a researcher and teach and talk about communication. And so one of the things that is really great about everything is that I feel like my dream has come true with this book. That I'll just share the name of it with you. It's called Hypnotic Communication in Emergency Medical Settings for Life-Saving and Therapeutic Outcomes. And this book I co-wrote with Four Arrows, who has two doctorates and is an expert on hypnosis. And the thing is that as a paramedic, I was always thinking about my communication skills because I teach communication. And so when I work with my patients on the other side of my life, I want to be able to do the best for them and use my communication skills, to the best I can. And so sometimes that means convincing someone of something that's important. And other times it, it just means that I need to be able to display confidence, or there's different things that are important. But what my book does is teaches paramedics and first responders for the first time ever what are the best ways to communicate when you have patient interactions, especially when a patient's going through something that's life-threatening and traumatic. And so the start of my career was really focused on this, as far as how to be most effective. And now that I'm 25 years in, I feel like that this book shows off some of those best ways that that healthcare providers like paramedics can be effective in how they talk to people.
Yeah. So is this your only book so far?
Say again?
Is this your only book so far?
No, I'm actually working on another book right now that's sort of geared towards management training, like how to be the best manager you can be. But my first book was actually a textbook that I wrote with a few other professors. And it's like a communications textbook that is 50% public speaking and then another 50% interpersonal communication. So it's sort of like all of these kinds of things about how to best communicate and how to work with people. It was really hard for it not to be on my mind, considering I'm in the classroom coaching and helping people, and then in working on the first book, which was about the same thing. The topic is really interesting to a lot of people because the book focuses on hypnosis. And what we found was that when people go through traumatic life experiences like a potential life-threatening event, like they're bleeding to death, or they are having a stroke, or they're having an allergic reaction that's severe, or they can't breathe, all of these things can really make someone be in a physical emergency, right?
Yeah.
But what we found was that these physical emergencies can trigger a mental emergency. And really, this fear that someone has can be so great that the result is that they enter a hypnotic trance. You know, Many of you may be familiar with seeing hypnosis people on stage who do things with um, different symbols that move, or they might have a stopwatch that they have you look at or say certain things. And all those things are done to induce and to work towards putting someone in a hypnotic trance. And this is the deal. When paramedics are showing up to these patients who are going through these things, they're already in a hypnotic trance. And now that we've found that out, it's really important to make sure to, use the best communication skills that we can to help that person. And one example in our book that we talk about that's kind of dramatic, but it happens all the time, is that if we have a little girl that got bitten by a dog, and if you think about a child that goes through a dog bite, those kinds of situations are pretty traumatic. And so how the people around her talk is going to potentially make all the difference, whether she as a little girl grows up to love dogs and have one herself someday, or be afraid of dogs and never see them. And so one of the things that we talk about is the importance of protecting our patients from negative negative things that can influence their mind, right? So we don't want someone that sees the patient to say something like, "Oh my gosh, that's so much blood," or "They look horrible. Are they going to die?" Or look at just all those kinds of things that can reinforce the negative thing that's already happening. And so what we want to do with hypnosis is we want to be as positive as possible. And you would think that that's a given. That you would think that that's what paramedics and EMTs would normally do, but the deal is that a lot of times we don't do that. We might make simple reassuring statements, but as for giving a full reassurance and with showing concern and empathy, and working with that patient to say things that would team up with them to get through it together, and those things just aren't done. And so that's why we're here to talk about these as great practices for EMTs and paramedics. And it's not just those folks, it's also lifeguards or anyone who would work with an emergency patient. And if you think about it from a patient perspective, you want someone there that is ready to team up with you and help you through this situation. And it's easy to think about how I would appreciate someone that is taking care of me in a way that is positive and that is reassuring, instead of someone that is maybe rough with their language or doesn't show a lot of caring. Or we want people, that are genuinely caring in those situations. And so, as a paramedic who's done this a long time, I'll tell you that it's easy to build up calluses meant to how we interact with people and our communication. And I mean that because we have to protect ourselves from getting maybe too close and personal with patients, because we can also be injured through um, going through traumatic experiences. And so opening ourselves up to being sensitive can, you know, cause things like PTSD to rear their head, or memories of the event to replay in your mind. And the reason why is because we care, as paramedics and EMTs. That's why we got into this job. But once you see so much death and horrible stuff, like once you see the other side of the street and what it can be like, then you know protecting yourself sometimes comes down to uh, acting like a machine a little bit. And so, what my book does is work to reinforce how it's okay to care for people. It's okay to say that I'm going to be here with you to get through this, and talk to them about, positive messages. This is something that's been going on for a long time, and even there's other people who use these kinds of techniques. There's a hypno there's a famous hypnotist in the UK named James Tripp. His last name's with two P's, so it's Tripp. And I've never met him or anything, but he wrote this book called Hypnosis Without Trance. And the thing about that book is that he talks about how to interact with people in a way that will activate some parts of hypnosis. So it's sort of like being able to have a conversation with someone and bring them into a hypnosis state, which would be different than sitting someone down in a chair, having them relax, having them focus with you, having them, go through some of the induction steps that we normally would see someone that's a hypnotherapist that does the job of, helping you stop smoking, or, whatever the thing is that you're trying to battle, that is done in a clinical way. So that form of talking through the hypnosis is sort of what they do in a small way when folks do stage hypnosis. And it's it just means that you're, a lot of times, to pull it off, you and those stage folks are choosing the low hanging fruit, so to speak. So that means that the people that are being brought up on stage are people that are easily set up, predisposed to that. And also, you'll see that there's a group of people that they dismiss from the stage pretty quickly on, and that's because they're just wanting to work with the low hanging fruit. And the low hanging fruit, the reason I call it that is just the folks that are more easily able to be induced into a hypnotic trance. And I think it's funny. I'm here in Austin, in North Austin. My mom rented a house for my family to all come in from different parts of the country, and that's where I'm here today. And It's I just want to share also the space I'm in is a closet that my family helped me set up so I could look like I'm in a studio, but I'm really in a closet in a house that my family rented on vacation. So it's a lot of fun. But my brother Kyle, I'm the oldest brother, but the second brother, he's an occupational therapist, and he said, Bram, I am not someone that's going to be able to. You can't put me in a trance. You're not. I don't think I would be easily induced. And I said, how many times does it take me to get your attention when you're watching a TV show before you snap out of it? And then he realized that what I'm talking about is the trance that he gets into with the television. And I just thought it was funny that he said it because I know him well enough to tell you that, he's one of those folks that really gets stuck to the show, stuck to the TV thing. And all that to say that a big the hypnosis and different kinds of hypnosis and different mental and mind stages and developments happen to us throughout our day, throughout our lives. And we're really familiar with the highway hypnosis when you're driving along and you've been on a road so long, and then you think to yourself, gosh, I haven't even been looking at the lines on the road. And you probably were. It was just like a whole, flash that went. And so
Or you're on
those,
the other side of town from where you started and don't remember the drive.
well, those people might be alcohol induced, but that's fun. I'm just meaning when you go a little ways. But all of this is just a different form of hypnosis. And the low-hanging fruit, the people that get on stage are those folks that have been identified as easy to quickly induce. And I was someone that didn't ever think hypnosis was real. Like when I talk to people about hypnosis, they roll their eyes or they automatically discredit it, especially people in healthcare. And so I was also one of those people. And I spent, because of the co-author of my book, who was one of the professors at a university I was at, because of his influence, he showed me the light. And I went through my time of doing research to say that I have read about 250 books and journal articles, even stuff back from the 1940s about hypnosis, because it was a strong interest to me. And I came into this as a skeptic, and I came out as a believer. And there's so many things out there that folks think about hypnosis as a negative thing or a not real thing. But the clinical science is out there to show that hypnosis is real. And one of the ways that it's shown is because they've done research studies that we talk about in our book. They've done research studies by using PET scans. And a PET scan is like a radioactive type imaging scan that they do a lot of times for cancer patients, where they can isolate whatever they want to look for, usually cancer, and so that they can make sure it's not anywhere in the body. And so, just like they can isolate cancer, they can isolate the use of glucose. And so, our brain uses glucose to, power it up. And so, what they found was that when they do this PET scan on patients that are hypnotized, their brain scans all look the same with the same pattern. So it's like, a total match to see that when you go into this machine for analysis, that we know if you're under hypnosis or not. And so, of course, those kinds of things were done on a scale that's more like, planned. And what I talk about in the book is a form of hypnosis that's not planned at all. It's something that me as a paramedic walk into in a lot of situations. And just knowing that the person is in a hypnotic trance is really helpful. I've had a lot of feedback from providers who work in the field that have big aha moments when we talk about this. And it's because emergency patients just don't look like regular people. You know, sometimes we say that they're in a state of shock. And the deal is that they are in a state of shock. And so what happens is that physical state of shock that's happening to their body creates a situation that just makes them vulnerable or susceptible to that hypnotic trance. And I think it has a lot to do with fear, that extreme fear that's happening.
Yeah, I remember when I had my heart attack a couple of years ago, I was extremely fearful. And I was definitely trying to soak in anything I could to help me feel better. And, one of the first things I was told when I got on the bed at the hospital was, "You are having a heart attack." And that scared the crap out of me, you know. So, yeah, it makes a difference what you hear. It really does.
Yeah, and so it's a real struggle for me because there are some types of heart attacks that, based on the equipment that I have on the ambulance, the 12 lead EKG that I do, some of the analysis that I do on the ambulance can tell me if I'm having a heart attack patient or not. So what happens is that, so like in those cases, I definitely want that patient to go with me to the hospital. Well, if they're having chest pain or symptoms, I probably want them to go with me anyway. But the sometimes the patient may not want to go with me to the hospital. So then I'm in a position where I have to decide, how do I communicate this? Because I want this person to go with me so bad because they need an emergency heart intervention. But at the same time, like, how do I convince them of that? Because do I tell them flat out they're having a heart attack? And if I do that, are they going to trust me? So all these things are a big deal in how we disclose information to have the maximum impact. Because I want the person to come with me. I don't want them to think it's not a big deal. But at the same time, like you said, I don't have any business going crazy with the just flat out telling them they're having heart attacks, because it's going to be dangerous to them. And so there's a real stretch there. I want to say that I'm really excited to be on your show, and being in this closet means that my cell phone is down to 5%. So I think I just wanted to tell you that, because I think I only have a few more minutes left, but could of course talk all night about this topic. And I hope that folks would get out of this that paramedics really care about our patients, and sometimes we don't show it. And the reason a lot of paramedics don't show it is because they have to be the one in charge, and they have to be able to deal with literally anything, from death to the traumatic injuries with kids. And to be able to be the one in charge and get through that, it means you have to be a strong person. And so the campaign that I'm on is to help that person, that strong person, be able to take advantage of the words that they use in a way that is going to help that person. And just some of the things that we talk about in our book is about just building credibility by doing things like introducing yourself to build rapport with your patient as a first step. And honestly, the reason we talk about that is because it's just not always done. I wrote an article in the Journal of Emergency Medical Services that came out this last month about building rapport with your patients and how that's important, for a clinical perspective. And so it's exciting to see that a lot of this is starting to take hold. And we're talking about paramedics who are adrenaline filled and have rushed to get to the patient. And so having a clear mind about how to say the right things, we hope makes a difference. And we go through all the way talking about from rape cases to burn victims to heart attacks, just what's the best thing. And my phone just went to 2%, so I think it's probably the end of our time together.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Well, thank you for being here tonight. I really appreciate it, and I wish you all the best.
Well, I'm excited to be able to talk to you in person and to tell you that your voice sounds just as awesome in person as it did in the times I've heard you before now. So
Oh
if
yeah.
if so it's good to hang out with you. And then if folks want to connect with me, professorbram.com is where I'm at. Professorbram.com, where they can see me and my podcast stuff for the research I do.
Okay, great. Well, I'll let you go before your phone dials. You have a wonderful weekend, and thanks again for being here.
You're awesome. Thank you so much. Good night.
All right. Thanks everyone for turning in again to the night crew, or excuse me, Friday night conversations. That's what happens when you have two podcasts. You get confused. Good night. Take care, and God bless.